an individual who has been described as being a female approached our teller, Mrs. Doris Waldman, in teller's cage number 4, presented a note, quote, "This is a holdup, all bills in envelope," unquote. After that, she displayed a gun, warned the teller not to trip an alarm, disappeared, leaving the lobby of the bank through our motor bank entrance.
What has the school board done for you in your cause for transportation? Anything? And what's been their reaction to your problem?
Well, we have been trying to get a bus since last month for the children that are going to preschool, and we haven't been doing any good because they've been telling us they couldn't help us. Either the school board, not the school board, I'm sorry, Mr. Truelson said that they couldn't help us because they was not connected with a school business, and they couldn't help us to get the bus.
Did Mr. Truelson tell you to bring your problem before the entire board and that they would hear the problem, or what was his reaction?
We asked him if he would. We told him of a problem about the school kids, and that's when he told us that he couldn't help us. Then we asked him if we could go to the school board and try it, would that help us? And he said no, that in a way he was the school board, he was it. And what he said, he would, that would decide. If he think there was no need to go to the school board, there was no need.
Well, the Dallas area is a little tougher than the rest of the country because of the fact you have a river that runs dry from time to time. When you have a river that runs dry, the only thing that's in there at many times is this 100 million gallons or so that you put in of sewage effluent. If you put it in primary, secondary, you're not doing yourself any good because you're putting water in there that is not reusable. I've talked with Mr. Glazier, and I think that they're going to go to a better type of treatment as they are all over the country where we have situations like this, and we're going to be putting in better and better water quality. In Washington, we're going to call for drinking water quality as the effluent of our sewage treatment plants. We figure that's what's necessary to clean up the nation's river. I imagine that's what you're going to have to do here on the Trinity.
Mr. Secretary.
Would you give your assessment of President Nixon's efforts to stop the war in Vietnam? Do you think there should be a moratorium on criticism?
I think definitely there's a war. The people in North Vietnam have known, the leaders have known for 2.5 years that they could not win militarily, and they've been counting on disrupting the American intention, the American desire to bring that war to a proper military, all agree, and they were restrained by civilians who were making the decisions in Washington during the McNamara regime. And I think that story should be told, not in order to place the blame, but in order to clarify exactly what's been going on. So I think that the moratorium is a good thing. I think that the president and the intelligence people know more about the situation than anyone else, and certainly their desire is as great as anybody's to bring it to a proper conclusion, and I think that they ought to be given a chance. It wasn't the president's war. He didn't start it. He inherited quite a mess so bad that the last president decided not to run again because of it, I believe. And I think we ought to have a moratorium and let the people have the knowledge and have the design and the desire, let them find the solution. I think they'll do it too.
Senator Scott said today that a breakthrough might be coming in the war in the next 60 to 90 days. Do you look for anything within the next year or the next 60 to 90 days?
Well, I think we've had a breakthrough. In the first place, the suggestion to arm the South Vietnamese isn't a new one. That started back in 1965, and that was held up by Secretary McNamara. Now, since we've been arming the South Vietnamese with proper equipment, we find out that they're pretty good fighters. If you go back and remember, we were told almost the same stories about the Koreans, that they wouldn't work, they weren't smart, they weren't bright, they weren't good, and they wouldn't fight. Now we found out that's not true, that they're excellent fighters, and they're very good citizens, and they've done a great job with their country. And I think the South Vietnamese, given the same opportunity, will come up with the same results. Same thing happened in China. We didn't have to lose China. We were talked out of China by 5 people who were completely discredited for their reasons. I think that it's time that we had a national policy. I think that we should go back and find out and restate exactly why we're in Vietnam and tell exactly why it's in the national interest to be there and cut out all this contrived confusion that's been sprayed across the country over the last year or so, and let the American people know exactly why we're there and what we have to do in order to bring it to proper conclusion. The North Vietnamese, like all communists, they have a tactic of fight and talk, talk and fight. They're not going to talk seriously as long as they know that we are to be restrained in our fighting. I've said for the last several years that we could have, and I think should have, won that war militarily 2.5, 3 years ago. And that's without escalation. And that's without any use of anything except ordinary weapons.
This would include, in addition to health service, health education. Health education is a very vital subject. We're living in a very complex world. We're living in a world that is very much aware of what is available for health care. It will be our responsibility, therefore, to provide the information so that our students, when they graduate from our schools, will, first of all, know something about their own bodies, something about how to take care of them, how to live more healthfully and more creatively. And in addition to that, they will be even more aware of what is available to them in the way of health service as individuals. The role of the school nurse is changing rapidly, in my opinion. I speak frequently with our school nurses, and I believe I understand their own feelings, how they see their own role as the school nurse. And I think that they are all pleased that no longer is she just a person to call mother and say the child is sick, please come and get him, but she is pleased that she is now recognized for her importance in the fields of health education, health counseling, and in the other areas where she can contribute.
Mrs. Sepulveda? Yes. This is Miss Bless. How are you? She's the visiting teacher at Thomas Edison, and I'm the school nurse, Mrs. Bogus. Is this your grandson? What is his name? Michael. Michael. Goodness. Please come in. Thank you very much.
I see the role of the school health service as being one of improving the environment of the child for learning. I think it's our only reason for existing in a school setting. We can contribute something to improve the emotional environment, the physical environment, the safety of the child, so that we are a part of the process. We're part of the team. We're no longer an isolated service.